What if there was a giant flea the size of a sheep? What if this giant flea's gruesome death set off an even darker chain of events that led to a royal family rift, a princess forced to marry a monster, and then try to escape him with the aid of 7 questionably superpowered giants? Would that be a butterfly effect? Or just a very old twisted tale? Friends and fiends, summon your familiars, get comfy and cozy, grab a mug of your favorite tea, and follow me. Resolutions taken without thought bring disasters without remedy. He who behaves like a fool repents like a wise man, as happened to the King of High Hill, who, through unexampled folly, committed an act of madness putting in jeopardy both his daughter and his honor. Once upon a time, the King of High Hill, being bitten by a flea, caught him by a wonderful feat of dexterity, and seeing how handsome and stately he was, he had not the conscience to sentence him to death. So he put him in a bottle, and feeding him every day himself, the little animal grew at such a rate that at the end of 7 months it was necessary to shift his quarters, for he was grown bigger than a sheep. The king then had him flayed and his skin dressed. Then he issued a proclamation that whoever could tell what this skin was should marry the princess. So much for not having the conscience to sentence the poor flea to death. Flaying, I guess, is okay. As soon as this decree was made known, the people flocked in crowds from all ends of the world to try their luck. One said it belonged to an ape, another to a lynx, a third to a crocodile, and in short, some gave it to one animal and some to another, but they were all 100 miles from the truth, and not one hit the nail on the head. At last there came to this trial an ogre who was the most ugly being in the world, the very sight of whom would make the boldest man tremble and quake with fear. But no sooner had he come and turned the skin around and smelt it than he instantly guessed the truth, saying, "This skin belongs to the King of Fleas." Now the king saw that the ogre had hit the mark, and not to break his word, he ordered his daughter, Porziella, to be called. Porziella had a face like milk and roses, and was such a miracle of beauty that you would never be tired of looking at her. And the king said to her, "My daughter, you know who I am. I cannot go back on my promise, whether king or a beggar. My word is given. I must keep it, though my heart should break. Who would ever have imagined that this prize would have fallen to an ogre? But it never does to judge hastily. Have patience then, and do not oppose your father, for my heart tells that you will be happy, for rich treasures are often found inside a rough earthen jar." When Porziella heard this sad saying, her eyes grew dim, her face turned pale, her lips fell, her knees shook, and at last, bursting into tears, she said to her father, "What crime have I committed that I should be punished thus? How have I ever behaved badly toward you that I should be given up to this monster? Is this, O father, the affection you bear to your own child? Is this the love you show her, to whom you call the joy of your soul? Do you drive from your sight her who is the apple of your eye? Oh, father, cruel father, better had it been if my cradle had been my deathbed, since I have lived to see this evil day." I love Porziella's drama, and she has some points. Porziella was going on to say more when the king, in a furious rage, exclaimed, "Stay your anger, fair and softly, for appearances deceive. Is it for a girl to teach her father, forsooth? Have done, I say, for if I lay these hands upon you, I'll not leave a whole bone in your skin. Pray thee, how long has a child hardly out of the nursery dared to oppose my will? Quicken then, I say, and take his hand and set off with him home this very instant, for I will not have that saucy face a minute longer in my sight." The king father is doubling down on his folly. Great. Poor Porziella, seeing herself caught thus in the net, with the face of a person condemned to death, with the heart of one whose head is lying between the axe and the block, took the hand of the ogre, who dragged her off without any attendance to the wood, where the trees made a palace for the meadow to prevent its being discovered by the sun, and the brooks murmured, having knocked against the stones in the dark, while the wild beasts wandered where they liked without paying toll, and went safely through the thicket whither no man ever came lest he had lost his way. Upon this spot, which was as black as an unswept chimney, stood the ogre's house, ornamented all round with the bones of men whom he had devoured. Think but for a moment of the horror of it to this poor girl. It did sound so idyllic before we got to the spot where the ogre's house was, though. But this was nothing at all in comparison to what was to come. Before dinner, she had peas, and after dinner, parched beans. Then the ogre went out to hunt and returned home laden with the quarters of men whom he had killed, saying, "Now, wife, you cannot complain that I don't take good care of you. Here is a fine store of eatables. Take and make merry and love me well, for the sky will fall before I let you want for food." Poor Porziella could not endure this horrible sight and turned her face away. But then the ogre saw this and cried, "This is throwing sweetmeats before swine. Never mind. However, only have patience till tomorrow morning, for I have been invited to a wild boar hunt and will bring you home a couple of boars, and we'll make a grand feast with our kinsfolk and celebrate the wedding." So saying, he went into the forest. Now, as Porziella stood weeping at the window, it chanced that an old woman passed by, who, being famished with hunger, begged for some food. "Oh, my good woman," said Porziella, "heaven knows I'm in the power of the ogre who brings me home nothing but the pieces of men he has killed. I pass the most miserable life possible, and yet I am the daughter of a king and have been brought up in luxury." And so saying, she began to cry like a little girl who sees bread and butter taken away from her. Now, I do understand the situation. She's faced with a terrible future, but it has only been one day, and it's only just starting. The old woman's heart was softened at this sight, and she said to Porziella, "Be of good heart, my pretty girl. Do not spoil your beauty with crying, for I have met with luck. I can help you to both saddle and trappings. Listen now, I have 7 sons who, you see, are 7 giants. Masse, Nardo, Cola, Mico, Petrullo, Escadio, and Sassoni, who have more virtues than Rosemary, especially Masse, for every time he lays his ear to the ground, he hears all that is passing within 30 miles round. Nardo, every time he washes his hands, makes a great sea of soap suds. Every time that Cola throws a bit of iron on the ground, he makes a field of sharp razors. Whenever Mico flings down a little stick, a tangled wood springs up. If Petrullo lets fall a drop of water, it makes a terrible river. When Aceto wishes a strong tower to spring up, he has only to throw a stone. And Sassone shoots so straight with the crossbow that he can hit a hen's eye a mile off. Oh, so sorry to burst this kind woman's bubble, but a lot of these powerful virtues sound like extremely inconvenient curses. Like imagine washing your hands, but you fill a room with soap suds, or just moving a rock out of your way and a tower shoots up out of the ground. Now, with the help of my sons, who are all courteous and friendly, and who will take compassion on your condition, I will contrive to free you from the claws of the ogre." "No better time than now," replied Porziella, "for that evil shadow of a husband of mine has gone out and will not return home this evening, and we should have time to slip off and run away." "It cannot be this evening," replied the old woman, "for I live a long way off. But I promise you that tomorrow morning I and my sons will all come together and help you out of your trouble." So saying, the old woman departed, and Porziella went to rest with a light heart and slept soundly at last. But as soon as the birds began to cry, "Long live the sun!" lo and behold, there was the old woman with her 7 children, and placing Porziella in the midst of them, they proceeded towards the city. But they had not gone above a half-mile when Masse put his ear to the ground and cried, "Hallo, have a care, here's the fox. The ogre has come home. He has missed his wife and is hastening after us with his cap under his arm." No sooner did Nardo hear this than he washed his hands and made a sea of soap suds. And when the ogre came and saw all the suds, he ran home, and fetching a sack of bran, he strewed it about and worked away, treading it down with his feet, until at last he got over this obstacle, though with great difficulty. But Masse put his ear to the ground once more and exclaimed, "Look sharp, comrade, here he comes." Thereupon Cola flung a piece of iron on the ground, and instantly a field of razors sprang up. When the ogre saw the path stopped, he ran home again and clad himself in iron from head to foot, and then returned and got over this peril. Then Masse, again putting his ear to the ground, cried, "Up, up, to arms, to arms!" Foreseeing here the ogre is coming at such a rate that he is actually flying. But Miko was ready with his little stick, and in an instant he caused a terrible wood to rise up, so thick that it was quite impenetrable. When the ogre came to this difficult pass, he laid hold of a Carrara knife, which he wore at his side, and began to cut down the poplars and oaks and pine trees and chestnut trees, right and left, so that with 4 or 5 strokes, he had the whole forest on the ground and got clear of it. Now for the curious, a Carrara knife is a knife that has a handle made with Carrara marble. And Carrara, the place where this marble is from, is the town in Tuscany, Italy, and it's known for this marble. Why that makes this ogre able to cut through trees is unknown to me at this time, but if you know, let me know. But our ogre is now clear of the wood. Presently, Masse, who kept his ears on the alert like a hare, raised again his voice and cried, "Now we must be off, for the ogre is coming like the wind, and here he is at our heels." As soon as Petrullo heard this, he took water from a little fountain, sprinkled it on the ground, and in the twinkling of an eye, a large river rose up on the spot. When the ogre saw this new obstacle, and that he could not make holes so fast as they found bungs to stop them, he stripped himself stark naked and swam across to the other side of the river with his clothes upon his head. That's impressive considering he was wearing iron before. Masse, who put his ear to every chink, heard the ogre coming and exclaimed, "Alas, matters go ill with us now. I already heard the clatter of the ogre's heels. We must be on our guard and ready to meet the storm, or else we are done for." "Never fear," said Askedo. "I will soon settle this ugly ragamuffin." So saying, he flung a pebble on the ground and instantly rose up a tower in which they all took refuge without delay and barred the door. But when the ogre came up and saw that they had got into so safe a place, he ran home, got a vine dresser's ladder, and carried it back on his shoulder to the tower. This ogre is so tenacious, I do have to appreciate it. Now Masse, who kept his ears hanging down, heard at a distance the approach of the ogre and cried, "We are now at the butt end of the candle of hope. Sassone is our last resource, for the ogre is coming back in a terrible fury. Alas, how my heart beats, for I foresee an evil day." "You coward," answered Sassone. "Trust to me and I will hit him with a ball." As Sassone was speaking, the ogre came, planted his ladder, and began to climb up. But Sassone, taking aim at him, shot out one of his eyes and laid him at full length on the ground, like a pear dropped from a tree. Then he went out of the tower and cut off the ogre's head with a big knife he carried about with him, just as if it had been a new-made cheese. Thereupon they took the head with great joy to the king, who rejoiced at the recovery of his daughter, for he had repented 100 times at having given her to an ogre. And not many days after, Porziella was married to a handsome prince, and the 7 sons and their mother who had delivered her from such a wretched life were rewarded with great riches. Friends and fiends, I hope you enjoyed the telling of this twisted old fairy tale, The Flea by Giambattista Basile, who I do love for the colorful words and situations. And now that we've reached the end of it, I'd like to tell you about my newest story, out now. What if you could have unlimited power, riches, and a whole kingdom, or could turn back time 90 years and be youthful again? Of course, there's a cost. You'd need to swap your skin with either an ancient queen's or a rough shepherd's. Would you do it? In this twisted old tale, we get much deeper than skin deep into this very question. And you can dive into it right now on Nebula First before it's out on YouTube. I release all of my stories early on Nebula First, and you can find all of my past stories, ASMR videos, and growing library of podcast episodes ad-free on Nebula as well. And if you love stories and podcasts, you'll really want to check out the Sojourn audio drama. With humanity on the brink of collapse, a desperate multinational mission sets out to explore a distant nebula in search of life-saving resources. The crews face not only division within the expedition itself, but an unexpected new threat, a fanatical alien race who will stop at nothing to eliminate outsiders. The Sojourn is an epic interstellar adventure grounded in a rich sci-fi universe inspired by the Age of Sail, told entirely through audio, with veteran voice actors, immersive sounds, and a sweeping original soundtrack. And their original, Faithless, is exclusively on Nebula right now. Nebula is a collection of conscientious creators, each with their own niche and speciality. Watching on Nebula directly supports the creator, and watching a bit late videos on Nebula helps me to make more videos. To get early access on Nebula First and access all of my videos without ads, please check out my links, go.nebula.tv/abitlate. You can get 40% off Nebula, or $36 per year, $3 a month. And you can go watch this new classic old story right now. And if you're already on Nebula, you can share guest passes with your friends so they can access it too for a full week. Or if you know they'll love Nebula, check out our monthly and yearly gift cards. Nebula has absolutely made a difference in me making these videos. And by signing up using my links, it makes it more possible. Thank you for being here and for checking out Nebula. But for now, off to sleep and dream what you will, or stay a while and enjoy another tale. Whichever you choose, I'll speak to you again, and until then, stay spooky, my friends. Good night.